What Remains of Edith Finch is the story of a haunted house. While I think the statement is undeniably true, it might also give you the wrong idea. The Finch house is not haunted by poltergeists who move objects around or by vengeful spirits who seek to torment the living. No, the house is not haunted by the presence of its dead inhabitants, but rather the absence of them. In this household, when a person dies, their bedroom is left nearly exactly the way it was when the person died, with only the small addition of a shrine to better memorialize them. The player is told early in the game that Dawn Finch, mother of protagonist Edith Finch, had each of these bedrooms sealed shut so they couldn't be accessed. When I was first told this, I thought Dawn did this in order to better preserve their memory. Now I know better. Dawn hated the memorialization that had consumed her family home, and she sealed the doors in order to keep the ghosts contained. Video games often excel at what is known as environmental storytelling, where players are informed about what happened in a space based on what is left behind. In What Remains of Edith Finch, the player gets to know each of the members of the Finch family based on the spaces they left behind. We get a strong sense of a person based on the objects they interacted with every day, how they decorated their rooms, and what objects were important to them. So tangible is their touch on the things they left behind that their absence is felt so profoundly, like a person-shaped hole in reality. It is in this way the game tricks us into feeling grief for people we have never met. Yet, when I first played this game, it was not grief that overwhelmed me, but rather a feeling of wrongness that I could not put my finger on. The first dead Finch we meet is Molly Finch, who died when she was 10, 70 years ago. Even though living memory of her has all but faded away, you would think she had died a week ago by the extent to which her family has moved on. 2 more generations of little girls have grown up in this house, who could have lived in this beautiful bedroom, and yet they are denied it in order to allow space for the absence of Molly. As the absence of the dead comes to choke these hallways, the living are given less and more precarious spaces to inhabit. Whereas the first generation to live in this house gave a bedroom to each of their children, the second generation have to make their children share a bedroom in the attic. The third generation makes space for their children in an elaborate tower built precariously out of the side of the house, growing like some bizarre form of cancer. This is wrong, and more than wrong, it is dangerous. And I don't just mean the shaky scaffolding. I suppose I shouldn't be so cruel, that I should be more sympathetic to the Finch family. Most of this memorialization is done by Edie Finch, the great-grandmother of our protagonist. Her husband built the house. She lived to be over 90 in a family whose average lifespan was less than 30. She had to bury all 5 of her children, and most of her grandchildren, too. I cannot imagine the grief and survivor's guilt she must have experienced in her long life, or what that could do to a person. In such a circumstance, perhaps, maybe it made sense to make a life for yourself among the dead rather than among the living. But I also know this practice didn't start with her. The person attributed with founding the Finch house was not Edie or her husband, but her father, Odin Finch, who sailed to the New World with his daughter in order to make a new life for himself and his family. He would have been more successful if he hadn't tried to bring his house with him. One can only imagine how many empty bedrooms that house must have had in it. But you can still see it out at sea. Odin was the founder of this household not because he built it or ever lived in it, but because he was the first in its graveyard. Edie lived with the ghosts of her family in front of her and behind her, and spent her entire life waiting to join the dead. But is it really survivor's guilt that she should be feeling? Perhaps if she had paid more attention to the living, she would not have, say, left poisonous holly berries in a locked room of a child sent to bed without supper. She would not have allowed their rope swing to be built next to a cliff. She might have asked more questions about the group of horror enthusiasts her daughter was getting involved with. She wouldn't have allowed her son to live in a bunker for 50 years because he was scared of a monster under the bed who ate his sisters. But more dangerous than any of these were the stories she told about them afterwards. Individually, the stories of the Finch family make for compelling, if tragic, anecdotes. Collectively, they make the Finch family curse. I've already told you of great-uncle Walter, who lived his life in terror of the curse. He is an extreme example, but following this generation, all the members of the Finch family are in some way touched by the shadow of death. Still, it is not until the fourth generation, the generation of our protagonist, that we see how dangerous these stories can be. We first hear about Edith's brother Milton in the form of a missing poster. Milton disappeared when I was 4, we are told. The missing posters scattered around the house put us in mind of the horrible mundanity of a missing child. Long, tedious searches of the nearby woods, painfully awkward negotiations between the cops and the desperate mother when the search is still fruitless. The going to the copy store to print more and more posters when still nothing is found. It is therefore genuinely shocking, at least to me, the fantastical nature of Milton's death. We are told through a flipbook animation that the young boy was an artist who one day discovered a magic paintbrush and used it to paint a door to another world which he just stepped through, never to be seen again. Although other stories are told in ways that suggest fantastical elements, this is the only story that lacks any practical explanation. It is almost as if the empty spaces in this house swallowed him whole. The family curse acting in the most direct way possible. It is not surprising, then, that it is after Milton's death that Dawn sealed the doors. Likewise, Edith's other brother, Lewis, chose to live in a world of his imagination rather than the mundanity of his real life as a cannery worker, before ultimately deciding to die in real life in order to only exist in fiction. Both brothers, when faced with the threat of a family curse, chose to die and exist merely as another story, rather than live under the shadow of death. Dawn tries to keep the power of these stories at bay by keeping them secret from her last surviving child. But just like the sealed doors, the absence only becomes more powerful. After all, part of what draws people to a haunted house is the mystery of it. This is ultimately what draws her back to explore the great and powerful emptiness that her family has left behind, and perhaps in doing so, come to terms with it. When all the stories are heard, the mystery of the Finch family can be unpacked, the curse untangled. There is no monster under the bed or demons in the walls. The deaths are caused by accidents, parental neglect, and self-destructive tendencies. The family curse is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is only real to the extent you believe in it. It is good to remember those that are no longer with us. But it is wrong to let that memory choke out the potential of what is yet to be.